One nation, one story that changed the entire world. On this channel, we bring you the real stories of the most powerful people in American history, every single week. Real people, real history, no shortcuts. This is Real Tales. Hit subscribe and let's go. He built skyscrapers that touched the clouds. He put his name in gold letters on buildings across the world. He hosted one of the most watched reality TV shows in history. And then, when everyone said it was impossible, he walked into the White House and became the 45th President of the United States. Love him or hate him, and believe me, people do both with incredible passion. There is no denying that Donald John Trump is one of the most influential, controversial, and talked about figures in modern American history. This is his story, from the very beginning. And trust me, it's one wild ride. Donald John Trump was born on June 14, 1946, in Queens, New York City. He was the fourth of 5 children born to Fred Trump and Mary Ann McLeod Trump. His father, Fred, was already a successful real estate developer. He built and managed affordable housing in Queens and Brooklyn. He was tough. He was disciplined. He was relentless. And he expected the same from his children. His mother, Mary Ann, was an immigrant from Scotland, from the Isle of Lewis, to be exact. She came to America in 1930 with barely anything in her pockets and built a life from the ground up. That immigrant grit, that hunger, it ran deep in the Trump bloodline. Now, young Donald was not a quiet kid, not even close. He was loud, he was competitive, he was aggressive. By his own admission, and by the accounts of people who knew him, Donald was a handful. He challenged authority constantly. He got into trouble. He pushed every boundary he could find. His parents eventually made a decision that would shape his entire future. At age 13, Donald was sent to the New York Military Academy, a private boarding school with strict discipline, rigid structure, and zero tolerance for nonsense. And here's the thing, it worked. At the military academy, Donald thrived. He excelled in athletics, especially baseball and football. He learned discipline. He learned leadership. He learned how to channel that aggressive, competitive energy into something productive. He graduated in 1964 and then attended Fordham University for 2 years, before transferring to the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania, one of the most prestigious business schools in the entire country. He graduated from Wharton in 1968 with a bachelor's degree in economics. And with that degree in hand, Donald Trump stepped into the real world, ready to make his mark. A very, very big mark. After college, Donald joined his father's real estate company, Elizabeth Trump and Son. And almost immediately, he started thinking bigger than Brooklyn and Queens. Donald had his eyes on Manhattan, the crown jewel of New York City, the place where the biggest deals happened, the place where legends were made. In the 1970s, New York City was in rough shape. Crime was high, the economy was struggling, buildings were crumbling. A lot of investors were running away from the city, but not Donald Trump. He saw opportunity where others saw disaster. And that, whether you agree with his methods or not, became the defining pattern of his entire life. His first major Manhattan project was the Grand Hyatt Hotel. He took an old, run-down hotel near Grand Central Terminal, a building most people had written off, and transformed it into a sleek, modern, glamorous hotel. It was a massive success, and it put Donald Trump on the map. But he was just getting started. In 1983, Trump Tower opened on 5th Avenue in Manhattan. 58 stories of luxury apartments, offices, and retail space, with a massive pink marble atrium that screamed wealth, power, and ambition. Trump Tower became his headquarters, his home, and his ultimate symbol. He literally lived at the top of a building with his name on it in giant gold letters. Throughout the 1980s, Donald Trump became the face of American wealth and ambition. He bought casinos in Atlantic City. He purchased the Plaza Hotel, one of the most famous hotels in the world. He acquired mansions, golf courses, and properties that most people could only dream about. He also bought a professional football team in the United States Football League, tried to compete with the NFL, and, well, that didn't work out the way he planned. But it showed something important about Trump. He was never afraid to swing big, even if he missed. His name became a brand. Trump wasn't just a last name anymore. It was a synonym for luxury, success, and unapologetic ambition. Books were written about him. Magazine covers featured him. He became one of the most famous businessmen in America, maybe in the world. But here's the part of the story that a lot of people forget or choose to ignore. The early 1990s nearly destroyed Donald Trump. His casino empire in Atlantic City started hemorrhaging money. The real estate market crashed, debt piled up, and we're not talking about small numbers. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in personal debt. Some estimates put it close to $1 billion. Banks were calling. Creditors were circling. The media, the same media that had celebrated him throughout the 80s, turned on him with absolute ferocity. Headlines screamed about his failures. Tabloids covered his very public and very messy divorce from his first wife, Ivana Trump. Every move he made was scrutinized, criticized, and mocked. A lot of people in that situation would have crumbled. They would have disappeared. They would have filed for bankruptcy personally and faded into obscurity. But Donald Trump didn't do that. He negotiated. He fought. He restructured his debts. He used every tool, every trick, every ounce of leverage he had to claw his way back. Several of his businesses did file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which is a corporate restructuring, not a personal bankruptcy. And he used those legal tools strategically to keep his empire alive. Was it pretty? No. Was it controversial? Absolutely. But by the mid to late 1990s, Donald Trump was back. Not just back, he was bigger than ever. He later said about that period, "I was billions of dollars in debt, but I never went bankrupt personally. I fought back, and I won. That's what I do. I fight, and I win." Now, you can debate whether that's the full picture. You can argue about the details, but the comeback itself, it was real. And it set the stage for the next chapter of his life, a chapter nobody saw coming. In 2004, NBC launched a reality television show called The Apprentice, and the star, Donald Trump. The concept was simple. A group of ambitious contestants competed in business challenges. Each week, someone got eliminated, and the person doing the eliminating, sitting at the head of a boardroom table with absolute authority, was Donald Trump. 2 words made the show iconic. "You're fired." That catchphrase became part of American culture almost overnight. People quoted it at work. Kids said it on playgrounds. It was everywhere. The Apprentice was a massive hit. It ran for 14 seasons and turned Donald Trump from a famous businessman into a full-blown pop culture icon. He wasn't just known in business circles anymore. He was known in every living room in America. The show portrayed him as the ultimate decision-maker, the boss, the guy in charge. And millions of Americans watched it every week and thought, this guy knows how to get things done. That image, carefully crafted, powerfully projected, would become incredibly important later. During this period, Trump also continued expanding his brand. Trump hotels, Trump golf courses, Trump steaks, Trump vodka, Trump University. His name went on everything. Some of these ventures succeeded. Some of them failed spectacularly. But the brand itself?
it only grew stronger. By the early 2000s, Donald Trump was a household name in every sense of the word. He was a billionaire, a TV star, a brand, a personality that dominated headlines no matter what he did. And then, he made the announcement that shook the entire political world. On June 16, 2015, Donald Trump descended the golden escalator in Trump Tower with his wife, Melania, by his side and announced that he was running for President of the United States. The reaction was immediate and almost universally dismissive. Political pundits laughed. Late-night hosts made jokes. Newspapers wrote him off as a publicity stunt. His own party, the Republican Party, didn't take him seriously. There were 16 other Republican candidates, many of them experienced politicians, senators and governors. Nobody, and I mean nobody, in the mainstream thought Donald Trump had a real shot. But something was happening in America that the experts didn't see, or refused to see. Millions of Americans felt forgotten. They felt like the political system didn't represent them anymore. They felt like career politicians made promises during elections and then did nothing once they got to Washington. They were angry about immigration. They were angry about trade deals that they believed shipped American jobs overseas. They were angry about what they saw as political correctness running out of control. And here came Donald Trump, a guy who didn't talk like a politician. He didn't use carefully scripted language. He didn't have handlers coaching every word. He said exactly what was on his mind, loudly, bluntly, and without apology. He called out his opponents with brutal nicknames. He dominated every news cycle. He held massive rallies that drew tens of thousands of people, something no other candidate could match. Make America Great Again. That slogan, printed on red baseball caps, became one of the most powerful political brands in modern history. One by one, Trump defeated all 16 Republican opponents. Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, all of them, gone. He became the Republican nominee for president, and then came the general election. Trump versus Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton was one of the most experienced political figures in American history. Former First Lady, former Senator, former Secretary of State. The political establishment, the media, the polls, they all said she was going to win. Some prediction models gave her a 90% chance or higher. On November 8, 2016, election night, the world watched in stunned silence as state after state turned red on the electoral map. Donald John Trump won the presidency. He carried states that no Republican was supposed to win: Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. The so-called blue wall crumbled. It was, by almost any measure, one of the most stunning political upsets in American history. Whether you cheered or cried that night, the world changed, and it would never be quite the same again. On January 20th, 2017, Donald Trump was inaugurated as the 45th President of the United States, and from day one, his presidency was unlike anything America had ever seen. His supporters will tell you about the achievements: the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that lowered taxes for businesses and individuals, the appointment of 3 Supreme Court justices, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett, which shifted the court's balance for a generation, the renegotiation of trade deals like NAFTA, which was replaced by the USMCA, the Abraham Accords, which normalized relations between Israel and several Arab nations, a historic diplomatic breakthrough. Record low unemployment numbers before the pandemic, a booming stock market, deregulation that his supporters said unleashed American business. His critics will tell you about the controversies: the travel ban on several Muslim-majority countries, the family separation policy at the border, the impeachment, not once, but twice, The first impeachment over a phone call with the president of Ukraine. The second impeachment after the events of January 6, 2021 at the United States Capitol. The constant battles with the media, which he called the enemy of the people. The divisive rhetoric that critics said inflamed tensions across the country. And then there was COVID-19. In early 2020, a global pandemic swept across the world. The coronavirus changed everything. The economy, daily life, politics, everything. Trump's handling of the pandemic became one of the most debated topics in modern American history. His supporters credited Operation Warp Speed, the initiative that produced COVID vaccines in record time. His critics argued that his downplaying of the virus and resistance to certain public health measures cost lives. The truth, as always, is complicated. And depending on who you ask, you'll get a very different answer. What's undeniable is this: Donald Trump's presidency was never boring. Not for a single day. He tweeted constantly, sometimes dozens of times a day. He held press conferences that turned into verbal sparring matches. He dominated the news cycle like no president before him. He was the most talked about leader on the planet. Every single day. In November 2020, Donald Trump faced Democrat Joe Biden in the presidential election. It was one of the most highly anticipated and emotionally charged elections in American history. Voter turnout was historic. Over 155 million Americans cast ballots, the highest number ever. When the results came in, Joe Biden won the election with 306 electoral votes to Trump's 232. Biden also won the popular vote by over 7 million. But Donald Trump did not concede. He claimed, loudly and repeatedly, that the election was stolen, that there was widespread fraud, that he was the rightful winner. His legal team filed dozens of lawsuits in multiple states. Almost all of them were dismissed, by judges that included some he himself had appointed. Election officials, including many Republicans, said the election was fair and secure. The Department of Justice, under his own Attorney General, William Barr, said there was no evidence of fraud on a scale that would have changed the outcome. But Trump didn't back down. On January 6, 2021, as Congress met to certify the election results, thousands of Trump supporters gathered in Washington, D.C. After a rally near the White House where Trump spoke to the crowd, a large group marched to the Capitol building and breached it. What happened next shocked the world. The United States Capitol was stormed. Lawmakers were evacuated. There was violence, chaos, and destruction in a building that symbolizes American democracy. It was one of the darkest days in modern American history.
Trump was impeached for a second time, this time for incitement of insurrection. He was acquitted by the Senate, as the vote fell short of the two-thirds majority needed for conviction. But 7 Republican senators voted to convict, the most bipartisan impeachment vote against a president in history. On January 20th, 2021, Joe Biden was inaugurated as the 46th president. Trump did not attend the ceremony, the first outgoing president to skip his successor's inauguration in over 150 years. Most people thought that was the end of Donald Trump's political career. They were wrong. After leaving office, Trump remained the most powerful figure in the Republican Party. He endorsed candidates, he held rallies, he built his own social media platform, Truth Social, after being banned from Twitter, Facebook, and other major platforms. He faced unprecedented legal challenges, indictments in multiple jurisdictions, federal and state, charges ranging from mishandling classified documents to efforts to overturn election results. He became the first former president in American history to be criminally indicted. Then indicted again. And again. And through it all,
His base of support didn't shrink. If anything, it grew stronger. In November 2022, Donald Trump announced he was running for president again, for the third time. Once again, the pundits doubted him. Once again, they said his time was over. Once again, they were wrong. Trump steamrolled through the Republican primary. He defeated every challenger, Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, and others, with commanding margins. He secured the Republican nomination for the 2024 presidential election. And on November 5, 2024, Donald Trump defeated Vice President Kamala Harris and won the presidency for a second time. He became only the second president in American history after Grover Cleveland to serve 2 non-consecutive terms. It was, once again, a moment that left the world stunned. On January 20th, 2025, Donald John Trump was inaugurated as the 47th President of the United States. The comeback was complete. Now let's talk about the personal side of Donald Trump, because behind the public persona, there's a complicated, fascinating human being. Trump has been married 3 times. His first marriage was to Ivana Zelničková, a Czech-American model and businesswoman. They married in 1977 and had 3 children, Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric. Their marriage was high profile. Their divorce in 1992 was even more so. It was tabloid gold. His second marriage was to Marla Maples, an actress, in 1993. They had 1 daughter, Tiffany. The marriage lasted 6 years before ending in divorce in 1999. In 2005, Trump married Melania Naus, a Slovenian-born model. They have 1 son, Baron. Melania became First Lady in 2017 and was known for her poise, her privacy, and her Be Best campaign focused on children's well-being. Trump's children have been deeply involved in his business and political life. Donald Jr. and Eric run the Trump Organization. Ivanka served as a senior advisor during his first term in the White House. Tiffany has largely stayed out of the spotlight. And Barron, the youngest, has become a figure of public curiosity as he's grown up. Trump is also known for his unique personal habits. He famously doesn't drink alcohol and has never smoked, largely influenced by the death of his older brother, Fred Jr., who struggled with alcoholism. That loss affected Donald deeply, and he's spoken about it many times. He's a well-done steak and ketchup kind of guy. He loves McDonald's and Diet Coke. He watches a lot of cable news. He sleeps very little, reportedly just 4 to 5 hours a night. And he has an almost superhuman level of energy and stamina. Whether you're watching him at a rally, a press conference, or a negotiation, the man simply does not stop. So how do you sum up Donald Trump? The honest answer is, you can't. Not neatly, not simply, not in a way that satisfies everyone. To his supporters, he's a hero, a fighter who stood up against a broken political system, a man who sacrificed his comfortable billionaire lifestyle to fight for the forgotten men and women of America. A president who delivered results on the economy, on the border, on foreign policy, despite relentless opposition from the media, the political establishment, and even members of his own party. To his critics, he's a dangerous figure, a man who divided the country, a leader who trampled norms, attacked institutions, and put his personal interests above the nation's. A president whose rhetoric emboldened extremism and whose actions threatened the foundations of American democracy. And to historians, well, they're still figuring it out, and they will be for decades. But here's what nobody can deny. Donald Trump changed America. He changed politics. He changed how campaigns are run, how presidents communicate, and what voters expect from their leaders. He proved that an outsider, Someone with no political experience whatsoever could walk into the most powerful office on earth and reshape it in his image. He was impeached twice and came back. He was indicted 4 times and came back. He lost an election and came back. He was counted out more times than anyone can remember, and every single time, he came back. You don't have to like him, you don't have to agree with him, but you absolutely cannot ignore him. From Queens, New York to the White House, from the military academy to Manhattan skyscrapers, from reality television to the Oval Office, twice. That's the story of Donald John Trump. A story of ambition, controversy, resilience, and power. A man who, no matter what you think of him, forced the entire world to pay attention. If this story made you think, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who loves history, politics, or just a truly unbelievable story. Drop a comment below. What do you think Donald Trump's legacy will be? Until next time, stay informed, stay curious, and never stop asking questions.